welcome to Beyond the Music, the podcast where we dive into the lives and stories of people who shape the world of music. I'm Karina.
And I'm Lena. We're both classically trained singers, and this podcast is our chance to explore the fascinating intersections of music, history, and humanity.
In our previous episode, we explored the evolution from Baroque to classical.
And today we're opening a new season with a theme that feels especially fitting: new beginnings, and how music helps us mark fresh starts after change, crisis, and transformation.
Beginnings are emotionally complex moments. They're full of excitement, but also uncertainty. And across cultures, music seems to be one of the first things humans turn to when something new begins.
Music creates a frame. It separates what came before from what's about to happen. Silence can feel open, sometimes even unsettling, but the first sound gives orientation.
That's true not only for life events, but also within music itself. The opening of a piece already tells us how to listen, what kind of world we're entering.
So, one of our main connections today is this: beginnings in life and beginnings in music function in remarkably similar ways.
So, at this point, we have decided to include an open question. Do you think a beginning feels incomplete without music? My opinion, yes. I feel like every big event, something celebratory, there's always music involved. For example, look at Happy Birthday. Lena's rolling her eyes.
Well, okay, yeah.
Whenever someone has a birthday, we have to sing Happy Birthday, or it just doesn't feel complete. We just celebrated the new year. We had music. If we didn't have music and we only had fireworks, it would be lackluster. There would definitely be something missing. So I definitely think a beginning of something feels incomplete without music.
Well, yes. But on the other hand, I, for myself, I'm not really, for example, celebrating my birthdays anymore.
Just wait, Lena. Just wait.
Maybe the round ones, but not like the ones in between. And I don't think that I get a happy birthday every year, and I don't miss it, because for me, a birthday isn't a new beginning. It's just a continuation, and you kind of divide your life in years. But this, for example, is not a new beginning for me. Also, I'm going to start a new job in February, and I didn't have music when I was getting the, go for, here, we offer you a new position, So it's definitely see something if you, for example, marry or something. There are some special occasions where you could say there's a cut or something changes, something big changes in your life. And you will connect the music you hear in that moment with that happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it will then also, if you hear that piece, it will always remind you then. So it has a big impact on fixing a memory, kind of imprinting it in your brain, more or less. But I don't think really it feels incomplete for every occasion without music. So that's my opinion to that. I mean, you listeners can think about that yourself, what it means for you. Do you need the music for every big change in your life, or do you have your kind of life soundtrack going through your life? Or is it something you're not thinking about? Well, if we look at music history, it's striking how often new beginnings appear after moments of crisis. Wars, pandemics, social upheaval, or cultural exhaustion.
After extreme experiences, continuing in the same musical language often feels impossible. Music reacts, sometimes by becoming simpler, sometimes by becoming radically different.
We see this pattern again and again. After periods of excess or complexity, there's often a turn toward clarity, intimacy, or restraint. Not because simplicity is less advanced, but because it feels more honest in that moment.
In that sense, starting over isn't always a choice. Sometimes it's a creative necessity. The old tools no longer express what people currently feel.
So here's a question for all of us. Do new musical styles come from more from hope or from exhaustion with what came before? What do you think?
Ooh, that's a hard one.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the situation that causes the music to react differently. Like, we have an action and then we have a reaction. So I think the reaction is very dependent on the previous action that causes it.
Yeah, I also think it depends. I think for composers, they always try to search for something new. They don't want to recreate what someone before did. So there's already since they feel they have to do something new, they have this kind of exhaustion with what came before because they are composers. But for example, classical music, we do enjoy to perform that really old music. And we don't get tired of it singing our favorite aria or whatever 1,000 times. So I think it's a mix. It's a mixture. Sometimes it's because there's a big cut. For example, if there is a war, normally the music changes because culture, arts and music, is always connected with history. You can see that in the timeline. It's always connected with history, not history. So it kind of is something which is woven into each other, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So going on. This idea becomes very personal when we look at composers who completely reinvented themselves. Not at the beginning of their careers, but later after crisis or disappointment.
A powerful example is Ludwig van Beethoven. When he began losing his hearing, it wasn't just a professional problem, it threatened his entire identity as a musician.
Instead of giving up, Beethoven began composing differently. His later works turn inward. They are more experimental, fragmented, and emotionally intense.
This wasn't simply a continuation of his earlier style. It was a new voice born out of loss.
Another fascinating example is Claude Debussy. Early in his career, he struggled with criticism and failure because he didn't follow academic rules.
And instead of trying harder to fit in, Debussy slowly rejected traditional harmonic thinking altogether. He focused on color, atmosphere, and ambiguity.
His reinvention wasn't loud or rebellious. It was quiet and deliberate, a new beginning built on resistance to expectation.
We also see late career reinvention in Giuseppe Verdi. After decades of success, he planned to retire.
But instead, he returned late in life with Othello and Falstaff, operas that sound leaner, faster, and psychologically deeper than his early works.
It's almost as if freedom allowed him to begin again, not with innocence, but with mastery.
And then there's Igor Stravinsky, who reinvented himself repeatedly.
From Russian folk influences to radical modernism, then neoclassicism, and later serial techniques. Each phase feels like a deliberate reset.
For Stravinsky, starting over wasn't failure, it was method.
New beginnings aren't only personal or historical, they're deeply ritualized.
Across cultures, music makes thresholds. New Year celebrations, weddings, births, inaugurations and festivals.
In many cultures, sound isn't decoration, it's symbolic. Bells, drums, chants, or fanfares cleanse, announce, or protect.
What's interesting is that many rituals use the same music year after year.
Which raises a fascinating question. Why do we repeat the same music to mark something new?
I mean, maybe repetition provides stability, a familiar sound that makes change feel less frightening, but also like it's culture and tradition. I mean, in Germany, most of Germans watch every New Year's Eve Dinner for One, which is a British short film, in black and white. It's really old. There are newer versions of it, but the best still the old one, the black and white one. And it's kind of a tradition because I think it started because they said there was a little spot in the television schedule they had to fill, so they just sent it that, and now every German is watching that because it's funny. So it's I think it's a little bit like this. It's something you can depend on, and which is connected with good feelings, mostly, I guess.
Yeah.
So, some new beginnings in music aren't emotional at all. They're technological.
The invention of sound recording completely changed music. For the first time, sound could exist beyond the moment it was created.
And later, electronic instruments opened entirely new sound worlds. Music no longer depended only on physical vibration. Electricity became part of creativity.
And today, streaming platforms have changed how music starts and ends. Songs often begin faster, intros are shorter, albums are experienced differently.
Every technological shift forces musicians to rethink what a beginning even is.
Beyond history and technology, there are deeply personal beginnings in every musician's life.
First performances, first failures, the first moment of standing on a stage and realizing this matters.
Many musicians describe a specific moment when they realized they belong to music. Not because they were perfect, but because they couldn't imagine doing anything else.
So we'd love to ask you and each other, when did you first feel that music was more than a hobby? What was it for you?
Oh, my parents have probably never forgiven me, but it was actually the last semester of high school. And in Canada, that's where you start applying to universities and really deciding on programs. So last semester of high school in grade 12, I decided I want to pursue music. And my parents said, we thought you wanted to pursue more animal sciences because you love animals, which I do. And at the end of the day, I said to them, I imagined my life and I just can't live without music.
Aww.
And that made me decide to go into music full time.
Oh, that's beautiful. For me, it was already earlier. I mean, I think I started to get voice lessons when I was about 15 or so. And it wasn't then that I really decided to want to study music, but I was in a dozen of choirs at the same time. I had so many choir practices at a time in my life. So I was a choir girl, and with my best friend, I started to sit on the piano and covering songs and inventing a second melody to that, to sing in a harmonic and everything, and kind of accompany me, like playing the piano while singing. And yeah, I think it kind of developed like this. Fun fact, I hated classical music at the beginning.
Wow.
At the beginning, I wanted to, as I was thinking about studying music, I was thinking about studying pop music. But while I was having voice lessons, I started to getting bored a little. What not bored, but I wanted to see what my voice can do, kind of, and it was limited in the pop world, kind of. So I wanted to explore where else I can take my voice.
Wow.
So that's when I started to do more classical stuff and starting to think about studying classical music. I mean, in choirs, I never cared if it was something classical. It was mostly classical stuff. When I didn't care what I sang. But when I listened to stuff, I didn't like to sit in concerts, especially if it's just instruments. I was like, oh, that's boring.
Yeah. Well, if we're going back to when we started in music, then I better point out that I didn't choose music randomly. My parents had actually put myself and my older sister in piano lessons, and I also screamed a lot as a kid. I was very loud.
Me too.
And while my sister was in her piano lesson, I would sing along. And the music teacher kept telling my mom, you have to get that girl into voice lessons. So it started out as a hobby, and I originally started in musical theater. It wasn't really until I got into university that I started singing more classically. And yeah, I mean, music has always been there for me, like pretty much all my life. And it was after high school that I decided to make it my life almost.
Oh. Well, this episode is also a new beginning for us since it's a new year. So we are starting with this episode a new season and also new connections we want to explore with that.
And maybe that's the most comforting idea. Beginnings don't erase what came before. They grow out of it.
Just like music, every first note still carries the silence that became before it.
I hope you enjoyed New Beginnings as much as we did. If you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review.
Next time, we delve into another fascinating chapter of music history. Until then, keep listening and discovering the stories beyond the music.
See you next time.